Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the B.Invested Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch. This is the show unraveling the truth to the start of the 21st century. We're now ex the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Today, I'm going to talk about getting started in investing, right? If I've had a lot of these young people come into the podcast and I'd say maybe 30% of the investors that I work with would be under, 25 years old. I've got a lot of young people that I help out, get started investing, buying their first property, all that sort of stuff. And everyone comes to me from a different walk of life. Some people come to me that have got, 100 grand and they're 20 years old. They've been wanting to do this for ages. Some people come to me and they're like 18 and they've got 30 grand saved up. We've got some people that are 25 and they might have bought a house and might have 200 grand. Everyone's position is different, right? But building that portfolio is a cool thing. It's very achievable and very easy, and you can still do it today in the current market at least, and repeat the same things that I was doing 20 years ago in my own portfolio. I had a chat last night with someone. I had like a map session with someone. It's one of my investors, the child. They listen to these podcasts all the time, so they'll probably remember the conversation quite clearly. And this person had some money that was given to him, right? It's very different than your normal investor. And this person had come across, a sizable amount of money that had come their way. And I was talking about it and I was like, shit, like I'm talking to 18, 19-year-old and I'm thinking about it I'm thinking more like the parent rather than being the investor or being the 20-year-old myself. In my head, I think I'm 20 years old every day. But I'm like, when someone's got so much that they can do with it, it's about protecting their position, right? So I felt most of the time I'm talking to investors and I'm like, hey, we should buy 20 properties, right? Start with 3 properties, we'll go back, rip equity, whatever. This person had a lot. And I was like, hey, hang on a second. I felt like half my conversation was about risk minimization, protecting and all that. And it made me think like, this applies to everybody. It's not just to a young person. It's just that I'd spoken to a young person that had a really healthy position. And I was like, it was all about risk. I was like, it wasn't like, hey, let's go buy 20 properties. You can buy 20 properties today, no problem, right? Buy most of them cash. But the thing is that it's about protecting that position and, certain things that a lot of people don't think about if you're starting out. So made me think back when I was 20 years old, when I started buying properties. What was my journey like? What did I think of? And for me, some people at 20 will be like, I want a Lambo, right? And that's cool, right? But the Lambos, you get over the Lambo pretty easy, yeah? Some people will be like, I want to get the properties, right? But then you get in the properties, it's like, well, what risk you need? What's your knowledge? What's your relationship got to be with money? And whatnot. So I actually had this very similar chat to someone recently at the gym. They're like, oh, how do I be rich? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm very candid, like I am always, right? With anyone, right? And I was like, with your attitude, you're never going to be rich, right? I don't like the word rich, right? But the attitude, like you're thinking about this wrong. You need to be having a good relationship with money. You need to have a good relationship with your goals. What do those goals look like? And it wasn't until I got to the end of the conversation, I was like, fuck, I wish I had have recorded this conversation and put into a podcast, which you just never know when you're talking to someone like, hey, that would be mad content, right? And that's why I wanted to jump straight in here and record this. So one of the things was like, this person was thinking about, okay, I want to invest so I can pay for my living expenses, right? I want to get 100 grand. I was like, that's cool. We can get there pretty straight away with your position. And then it was like, oh, when I get older, I want to get a cool car, whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. A cool sports car will become a Ford Falcon in the future. It doesn't, when you have I've got millions of dollars worth of cars still. I didn't even think about it. I just say I used to have millions of dollars of cars. I still have millions of dollars worth of cars. I've gone from a Bentley to a Mitsubishi Mirage for $500, and I've gone back to, cars that are more better than the Bentley I ever had. I don't go and talk about them, right? But let me tell you, when I drive, I've driven to the studio today to record. It's not my studio, my other studio. When I parked my car, I bought my Suzuki Jimny today. I don't have to worry about it. I don't give a shit, right? It's a 30 grand car, 20 grand car, 40 grand car, whatever. I don't care. Like something happens to it. I love the car, but I love it because it's just like, it's cool. It's a trusty fucking car, right? But I don't have to stress about that car. If something goes wrong with it, it's like, okay, if it got taken away today, I don't know, someone pranged it or something, well, okay, well, I have to go down and buy another one, and here's the card to go put it on, whatever. But if it happened to $1 million car, right, I'll be thinking, fuck, right, that paint is worth double what the Suzuki's worth, right? So the more things that you clutter in your life, the more enslaved you get and trapped in your own world. I even think about when I'm buying businesses or properties or whatever, I'm like, I'm digging bigger chains, I'm putting chains on myself, right? So you needed to think about the overall strategy. And it got to the end of the call that I had with this person. I said, if I was you starting out today, the coolest part's that you're like under 20 years old, right? If I could take all my assets today, right, and go from 40 to 20 and go, I'll start off with no assets, but I'll be 20 years old again with my brain, of course, from today, I would fucking walk out and be 20 years old again and not ever look back for 1 second, right? So it's cool, but you need to think about who you want to be when you're 30 or when you are 40. And I've always thought about the person I needed to become, because the person I needed to become, there's a whole psychology behind that. And I need to act in the person I need to become to be able to attract and appreciate what I have to get there. Yeah. So what I mean by that is, if you're a parent, right, you might be a kid, right? You're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm 20 years old today, and my parents are 40 or 50 or whatever, and they're just an old bastard. Well, no, your parents were a totally different person. Your parents were probably doing what you're doing today beforehand, but they've had to level up. If you've got kids, you know what I'm talking about, because you need to turn up to your kids as a different version of what you were before you had those kids, right? And if you don't turn up as a different person, the person that they need, then you're not going to have a good relationship with them. So when it comes to investing, you need to identify the person that you need to become, or the person you want to become. So then you can act in line with that person. Yeah. So, it's easy to obtain wealth. It's easy to get money. It's easy to get assets, but keeping them is another thing. So, I've seen people go through seasons and they jump around. They've got a business, they make money, they lose money, they do this, they do that, they do the next thing. But it's like, if you want sustainability, you need to be, okay, what does the person, if someone has 50 properties, what is their habits like to the person that doesn't have the 50 properties? If someone's got a good relationship with their spouse, what do they do differently than the person that's been divorced 6 times, right? The habits of those people, there's a difference between the habits. It's not just like, okay, yeah, you've been married 6 times. Oh, I'm really sorry, you've got 6 bitch ex-wives that you've dealt with. It's like, maybe it could be your behavior. Like, why did you get yourself? Did you not see a red flag? Did you, why did you get married after 3 months and divorce 3 months later? Is it really the best thing to be doing, is getting married for the fucking 10th time at 80 years old, right? They're things you need to be questioning, right? So is it the habit of that person, or is it everyone else's fault, right? So my thought is that I would do the same thing as what I did to get to where I am again. I'd get here much quicker if I was to do it again, because of the actions and habits that formed from all the inputs that have been in my life, good and bad. People look at things and say, oh, that's terrible. People had to deal with half the shit, or 10%, 5% of the shit I've had to do in my life. They just walk away. And that's, I've had to sit there and deal with shit to overcome hurdles and objections to get to the next level. So my thing would be, if I was starting out today, is go, okay, I'm 20 years old, I'm 30 years old, I'm 40 years old, whatever. Who is the person I need to be when I'm 50, right? I'm sort of going through it at the moment, right? Because I just turned 40. Thinking at 50, who do I want to be, right? Who's the person? When people look back in the next 10 years, right? You could go to school friends of mine and be like, oh, Birchy this. And they'll be like, that guy used to, I don't know, piss on the door. I don't know. I'll just make it. I didn't piss on the door, right? Just make it up some funny story. They could have some stupid story, but that's what they remember me as, based on some idiotic thing that I could have done when I was 15 years old at school, right? But then when I'm 50 and I'm 40, I've got 10 years to plan out the next chapter of my life. What will I be remembered for? And it'll be totally different to what people remember now. And it's totally different here in 2025 than what it was in 2015 of what people remember. So what attributes do I need to be to become that person in a decade's time? What does that look like? Have you thought about that, right? Let me just go back a step, right? Like I can talk about properties here, but let's say it's a business, right? Like I used to, as business, I've had hundreds of staff, thousands of staff over the years, right? I got like 400 staff across different businesses today. And I have to show up today as a very different person than what I was 10 years ago and 15 years ago. When I first started with staff, I'd think, oh, it'd be cool. I want to be liked by my staff. I want to go to the pub and get pissed with them. It'd be great. They'll like me better, right? But when you go to the pub and get pissed with your staff, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. They're seeing your weaknesses. They're seeing certain things, right? So it's like, we could have hung out with my friends and been friendly with my friends and gotten drunk with them. But if I go and do it in a different setting, then it's not right. Yeah. It was a pretty cool time in my life 15 years ago, right? But that's not the way that I need to be as a leader and as a business person. So I need to be different. I don't even drink nowadays, right? I don't smoke. I don't, I'm pretty boring and clean existence, right? But I had to change because I realized where my vulnerabilities were. But if I could have erased that and been 10 years better off, I would have been like, okay, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. So when you think about the person that you want to become, right, it's going really fucking deep. I'm not going to go on spiritual hippie levels, right? But you need to think about the person that you need to become and think about how that person would be acting, showing up. And if that person acted in a certain way, would they be able to keep their wealth? So we're just purely here talking about wealth. It could be a partner with a spouse. It could be a relationship with your child. Who do you need to turn up to be to, we could all go and pick up a chick today, right? I'm saying as a dude, right? Or you can be a girl, whatever. Go pick up someone, right? But there's a difference between picking up someone and keeping that relationship strong. There's a difference between getting a job and keeping your job, right? You can go into an interview, lie your way through, fucking have a resume, get your mate to call up and say, yeah, there's a great, best person ever, whatever, right? But, you don't live that life for a certain point, right? You need to, if you don't fit in, you're going to lose that relationship, that spot, whatever. And the same thing happens when it comes to money. And I've seen so many people that become really successful. They become very wealthy, right? And then suddenly they stop the habits of what they did to become successful, right? People would produce, they will work hard, they will do certain things, they'll build wealth. I've seen people build 100 properties, go down to 0 properties. I've seen people get to 50 properties, get to 100 properties, right? I've seen all different dynamics of that. And, I look at that and, what caused that scenario to happen? And, it's a change in habit. So if you know the person, you know the parameters of where you need to be, then you can act as the person that needs to attract that. I think there's some saying in the Bible, right? And I've tried to find this online. I saw it in Reels years ago, and it was some chick, and she said, I wasn't a girlfriend to find a husband, right? I showed up to the relationship as the wife the dude needed to be. So you need to be the wife before most people in society go, they need to turn up to a relationship to find a husband. They need to be the girlfriend. The girlfriend gets engaged. If they're going to go get married, then they go and do this. This chick from a very spiritual front said, you need to rock up as the wife to the relationship as you are the wife, because that's how you attract the partner that you need to find. So when it comes to the money or the wealth that you need to be the person that's going to be able to manage that wealth, because if you're bad at managing money, you're not going to be able to keep it long enough. I think we're at the point, guys. So lots of other things to talk about today. If I was starting out, what sort of things, who are the people in your life, right? If you're 20 years old and you could have a boyfriend or girlfriend, what's that going to look like in 10 years' time? Are you going to be the wife or the husband in a relationship? Are you going to have kids? What are the kids going to look like? What are the, not physically what they're going to look like, but, what's that family dynamic going to look like? What's the contribution of a partner? I see people when they're 40 and they come in and say, I want to build wealth. One person doesn't want to invest. The other one wants to invest. Sometimes it causes a rift in the marriage. Need both people on the same page. Is the person that you're with going to be the person that you're with in 10 years' time? Not even getting into relationships here, folks. But you need to be thinking about that. What's the asset protection going to look like? What does it look like to, do you need a prenup? Do you need to disclose the information? What's your living arrangements going to look like? You could have, 10 properties, move in with someone, and then there's laws that are surrounding it, right? There's positions of reliability, right? Like you've helped out a spouse, and then there's a position of reliance based on you doing that. You've entered into a contract in law that you need to provide for that person, right? So when you split up, then how does that breakdown of a relationship look like? So you need to think about, people go, "Oh, I'm happy in a relationship," but there's nothing worse than a scorned female, right? That's a saying that always got told to me, right? It's like, you're happy in a relationship when a chick gets the shits with you, right? And fortunately, touch wood, I've never had any of those situations that have occurred. I've come across lots of crazy chicks, but I've never been in that position, which is, I've come across it, but I have seen it a lot, and I've seen very bitter, relationships, guys and girls, right? I just use the female one because that applies to me, but it's the same. It might sound happy today, but you got to think, okay, if this didn't end happy, how's the person that you're with character, and how could they act towards you and your wealth that you've created if there was a problem in the future? Do you own a property with your person that you're with, right? Or do you rent a property with them? Do you become two tenants in that property? Do you move all your mail to the address, or do you keep your mail in the property of where your parents live, right? They're very important things to be thinking of when getting into a relationship with someone, because that's going to have a big impact on your journey later on in life. So I've always been very mindful of that, and I'd advise anyone starting out, if you're in a relationship, not in a relationship, what does that relationship look like in the future, and how do you protect your finances along the way? It's not getting a prenup either, because a prenup has certain limitations, and there's ways around that, and there's ways to protect yourself without one. Making sure that the what are the goals, right? Like, this is just basics on goals, right? But what do your goals look like? What if you know where you want to be? Let's say you're 30 today, and I think a lot of people watching this would probably be in their 30s or 20s, 25 to 35 range, right? You could be 20. Well, let's say a decade later, if you can get to that goal of getting to 100 grand passive income, I want 20 properties in my portfolio, right? You need to know what that looks like. So then you can sort of reverse engineer to go, okay, what are the steps I need to take today? Because there's no point in saying I'm going to buy properties. You could be able to, I speak to people every day about goals and their portfolio, and I do map sessions and strategy sessions and work with my investors one-on-one. And I'll see someone with $500,000 and no debt, and they'll say to me, "Oh, really? I'd love to retire with $50,000 a year in 15 years' time." I'm like, 50 grand in 15 years' time, you can fucking get there today, right? So you may think that it's impossible, but you can get there a lot quicker than what you thought. You might sit here and say, "I want $1 million a year passive income in the next 5 years, and I've got 20 grand to start off with, and I'm on 50 grand a year." And I'm like, fuck, like, we've got to be realistic as well, folks. And, people are, "I want to be like you, Birchy." So, well, it took me 22 years and counting to get to where I am today from my first investment property. So there's lots of things that you got to grow and learn, and ingredients into the mixture, and the baking time for it to cook to get there. So if you don't know where that north position is, you can't navigate your way to get to north to find it if you don't have that identified. So I guess the other thing as well on my journey that I look back on is that there's been stages, right? There's been fucking ups and downs. It's been no one easy ride to get to where I'm at, right? I've had issues in every single aspect of adversity that could be thrown. Touch wood, I've got health, I've got good family, got good people, got good things around me, right? But lots of things have been terribly wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. Things that I may not have survived from, in certain instances, been in headlocks, contractual lies, stuff like that, right? And in that journey, there's been times where I remember I was like 25, I was dating some chick, I was driving around in my GTR R35, brand new at the time, and I bought some CDs. Who uses CDs anyway? Bought some CDs, and the chick goes, why are you excited about buying an Eminem CD? This is like 10 years old, right? I'm like, because I would have had to spend $30 on the CD beforehand, and now I can get it for $7.99 or something from GB Hi-Fi. It's cheap. It's in the throw-out bin. And she's like, why didn't you just buy it beforehand? I'm like, because that would have mean that if I bought these 5 CDs, that would be like 2 days worth of work and energy that I would have put in. And then that would have been, a cost to my portfolio. So there's been times where I've been really frugal in my journey. And there's been times where I'm like, cool, I need to fucking load up $1 million worth of cars to show off certain things, right? And take photos in front of them or whatever. And I think sometimes you can be sidetracked. If I was to go back and correct issues over 20 years, I'm happy with where I'm at. So I'm happy with the good and the bad on my journey. But I do think as I get older and as I get wiser, that if I had have protected myself and I had have known better, hey, that one there could blow your fingers off, right? Don't be so nice over here, Birchy. Whatever the case may be, I could have been much further ahead as well. So yeah, just understanding of, cool, let's go and touch this. Like there's a test, there's a kid test. I might get my editor to drop this in the video. It's called the marshmallow test for children, right? It's got this little kid basically, and you can see the marshmallow test if it gets put in this video, but if not, I'll just record it here, right? The marshmallow test is where kids given a marshmallow and they get like 5 minutes. If they don't eat the marshmallow, they come in with a second marshmallow. So they get 2 marshmallows. And if they wait another 5 minutes and not eat either of the 2 marshmallows, they get a third marshmallow, right? And if they don't eat the third marshmallow in another 5 minutes, they get a fourth one. And sometimes the kid will sit there and they get like 5, 10, 15 marshmallows. But most of the times the parents walk out of the room and say, don't touch the marshmallow, we'll be back in 5 minutes. They come back within the video recording this, and within 5 seconds, the kids eat the marshmallow, right? Because it's delayed gratification. They're just grabbing the marshmallow and eating the fucking thing, not thinking about the consequence of their action. So as adults, I'll tell you, I've connected with thousands, millions, I don't know how many people in the world. And there's a lot of adult babies out there, right? They're like, oh, cool, shiny thing, let's grab it, boom, right? And it's having that discipline along the way to keep committed, to keep focused, to keep on track, to keep on the path. And, remaining committed can sometimes be annoying or could be frustrating or you could feel defeated. But if you have a solid enough plan, you have a solid enough vision, you have a solid enough reason as to why you're doing it, you overcome that. It becomes a game. It becomes fun, right? There's so many boring things in my life that I do, and I think of it as fun because it just became a fun habit rather than a negative habit that can be built upon just as easy as, a good habit can be formed. So, yeah. And I guess just mindset, right? Like impacts coming from parents, coming from colleagues, coming from friend groups. If your friends, there's all these sayings that if your 4 best mates are broke, you're going to be the 5th one. I don't agree with that, right? But the mindset of the people that are around you, and it could come from your family, your most loved people that you can't change in your life, that could be negative for you, right? They could be, oh, don't worry about that. Come on, right? It's like, no, so you need to have the discipline in yourself to go, that's not right. That's not in line with the person I need to become or who I need to be. And you can I look at it now, it's just like Neo in the Matrix, right? I'm like, hey, right? It's like, if I do your actions, I'm going to become you. So if you don't like the person that's talking to you, don't do the actions that they're doing. And sometimes the uncomfortable truth is a person that you don't want to take the action from. You need to be honest to yourself because that could be the person in the mirror that's looking at you, being yourself. You don't like the actions, right? So, yeah, just thinking about the mindset around that's very, very important, and the small talk that comes in. And I think the small talk can be put onto us in all different ways, right? It's like, you need to have money to make money, or you need to, I can't get there because I'm rich. I see so many fucking losers, right? I'm not saying losers like loosely, or I'm saying it loosely. I'm not saying people are losers. I don't mean it to come across with that, right? But it's like, when I say the word loser, I mean the person is like, oh, but you don't know how hard I've had it, or this or that or the next thing, right? You can have an excuse for why you haven't done something, or a reason, or just fucking do it, right? Nothing in my life has been easy. My life is fucking anything but easy, right? It looks good. I have a great life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not whinging. You've never seen me whinge, right? But it's not easy. right? And it's growing. You want to go to the gym, you want to get ripped, you want to get fucking healthy, whatever it is. You're going to have sore arms, right? You're going to have sore legs. I don't want to do leg day. I've got to do leg day, right? I can't even fucking walk and get up in the morning. That's cool, right? But that gives you a result of what you need. When I'm 80 and I can fucking get up and people I know are in wheelchairs and I'm being able to walk, I'm like, that action that I took 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever, got me to a good spot at that point. So growth comes with adversity. Adversity brings on growth. Embrace it, understand it. There's so many distractions that can keep you, off the path of where you want to go. So have clarity on that front. And I guess in final, right, like just be the person, going back to what I was saying beforehand, the person deserves the life that you want to create, right? Like create that life, but you need to be the person that's deserving of it, that's going to get it, because if you can't, it could be a short-lived thing, right? I've seen so many people that got to 10 properties, 15 properties, 30 properties, whatever, and they didn't know how they became successful. And they go, oh, I sold my properties and I just went and invested it into this and it hasn't worked out good. And I need to go back and get started there again. And things fuck up in life from time to time. But that decision could have been avoided. Like I was saying before, and if I went back for the last 20 years, I could have avoided lots of situations. But the part of growing is learning and, having those bruises and shit along the way. But there's so many people which make really bad decisions because they get distracted or they get led along to another fantasy world, or something gets boring, something gets too hard, and they don't remain focused. So a lot of it is mindset. And, I can sit here and say, buy one property, pull out equity, buy another property, blah, blah, but it's not two-dimensional, right? The person that you are becoming, everybody buys property at the price they deserve. Just think about that, right? Sure, if you're 20 years old and you couldn't sign a contract 10 years ago and you wanted to and you were 10 years old, it makes it a bit difficult. But if you're sitting here going, oh, I'm not going to buy, I'm going to wait, I'm going to do this, and the price goes down, well, then you've benefited. If the price goes up, then you haven't benefited. But that's the price based on the decisions that you make, right? The decisions that you make are going to end you in a position of where you deserve, right? It's the only reason why you end up in that position. So, just my 2 cents, folks. I just thought I'd share it. Yes, buying property is important. Yes, finance is important. Mindset is really crucial. Protection is crucial for yourself. And, the actions, like just those little habits that you take. I know I've done videos on habits beforehand, but I just felt like, well, last night when I was having a chat with this person, they could do lots. I just wanted to make sure, I felt like it was like, let's protect you, right? Let's protect you. And I thought, if there's something you could get from listening to a podcast from Birchy that goes, fuck, I didn't think about that. I can be 10 years ahead of my position because I cut something bad out of my life. I protected myself because I thought about something differently. Then I've just enjoyed the last fucking 20 minutes or whatever of making this podcast. So hopefully you gained something from this today. If you have any questions, you've got a story, a scenario, share your stories below, send us an email, give us a buzz, hit us up. You know where to find us, 1300 367 925. And make sure you check us out every Thursday. If you like this, share it with your friends and family. Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify, and YouTube every Thursday. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it.